Hello everybody, my name is Alex and welcome to the second instalment at this brief look at Scottish Prime Ministers of the United Kingdom. So last time we looked at key figures such as John Stewart, who was the first Conservative PM, and the famous William Gladstone, whose parents came from Scotland. In today's episode we are going to look at 5 Prime Ministers from Scotland, including Ramsay Macdonald and Tony Blair. As always, if there's anything you like about the video or that you would change, let me know below. Additionally, this video is linked to episode 5 of my Scotland playthrough of Civilization 6 Rise and Fall, where we take a look at playing the game through as historically as possible, so kind of just shedding light on events and things we come across in a historical context. Remember to like and subscribe if you enjoy, so let's get into the video. The first Prime Minister we're going to look at today is the Liberal Henry Campbell-Bannerman, which is quite a mouthful to say because I'm on my 5th take here and it's proven a pain. Bannerman, who was born in Glasgow, followed his fellow Scot Arthur Balfour, who we had a look at in the last episode, as Prime Minister. And he was in office between the 5th of December 1905 and April the 3rd, 1908. Bannerman was forced to resign from this post due to ill health and died a mere 19 days after his resignation. Although defeated in the 1900 general election, Bannerman led the Liberal Party to a landslide victory in 1906. Some of other key events around Bannerman and other key policies include free trade and Irish Home Rule, which he was a supporter of. That was a real key debate during this period. Next up on the list is Andrew Bonar Law, who was Conservative Prime Minister from the 23rd of October 1922 to the 22nd of May 1923. Bonar Law was originally born in Canada, which makes him the only British Prime Minister to be born outside of the British Isles. He's eligible for this list due to his Scottish heritage and the fact that he moved back to Scotland in 1870, which was quite early on in his life, I should say. Sometimes referred to as the unknown Prime Minister, he also had his premiership cut short due to illness when he died late in 1923, not long after he'd resigned as well. The key event of his premiership came in January 1923, when his dissatisfaction with his Chancellor at the time, Stanley Baldwin, over the settlement of British war debt with the US and the diplomatic crisis with France over the Ruhr, that almost caused him to resign. Next up is James Ramsay Macdonald, who was PM from the 5th of June 1929 to the 7th of June 1935. Macdonald was the first Labour politician to act as Prime Minister. Scottish politicians are interestingly therefore the first to lead a government for the two major political parties in British politics today, the Labour and the Conservatives. Macdonald and Labour actually took office first in 1924 with a minority government and in coalition with the deteriorating Liberal Party. But the government only lasted a year because it was quite weak. On returning to government in 1929, Macdonald and his government were confronted by a worldwide recession which led to the unique scenario of a national government, headed by Macdonald but made up of a large number of Conservatives and Liberals. The situation for Labour only got kind of deteriorated with the general election of 1929. The election decimated the Labour Party and led to Macdonald essentially fronting a Conservative government from 1929 to 35. If you look at the stats, the Tories had a lot more seats. The Conservatives disliked him, whilst Labour politicians despised him and considered him almost a traitor-like figure for fronting and participating in government with the Tories. As with Bonar Law, Macdonald was succeeded by Stanley Baldwin as Prime Minister, demonstrating what an influential politician he was during the interwar period. Macdonald passed on the 9th of November 1937 whilst taking a cruise to America in an attempt to restore his health. From Macdonald it would be over 60 years until the arrival of the next Scottish Prime Minister, Tony Blair. Born in Edinburgh as Anthony Charles Linton Blair, he was Prime Minister from 1997 to 2007. Although from listening to him, his Scottish accent is no more really, is it? That's why I didn't think he was Scottish for some reason. When he took office in 1997, Blair was the youngest PM since 1812, and his 10-year stay in the post makes him the longest serving Labour Prime Minister ever. Blair's first term included a marketing image known as Cool Britannia. The campaign, led by Alistair Campbell, aimed to paint Britain as a modern power which was leaving behind the decline and division of the recent past. Although the public were beginning to have concerns on Labour's irresponsible spending by the end of his first term, Blair was re-elected with a comfortable majority in 2001 for a second term. His second term was very much dominated by foreign affairs, most notably Iraq, which I'm sure if you know anything about it, it's surrounded with a little bit of controversy. A little bit, a lot. Although there was much dissatisfaction on Blair's policy in Iraq, he did actually manage to achieve a third electoral victory, although with a much smaller majority this time. Things in his third term largely began to fall apart for him. Key events including the horrific disaster, which was the 7/7 terrorist attacks. I actually remember watching them when I was quite young, and it was awful. And the split in the Labour Party in regards to the subsequent terror legislation which followed kind of brought Tony Blair down a little bit. Last but not least, we are going to take a look at Gordon Brown, a man whose Scottish accent was, in my opinion, more evident than Tony Blair's by quite a margin. So Brown was Chancellor under Blair and led the Labour government from the 27th of June 2007, he took over from Blair, to the 11th of May 2010. Born James Gordon Brown in 1951 in Glasgow, although he went to university in Edinburgh, and he ended up being Britain's longest serving modern Chancellor. I think he was the whole of the 10 years he was Chancellor of the Exchequer under Tony Blair. Amongst the key acts and legislation Brown oversaw when he was Prime Minister, there was devolution in Northern Ireland and the withdrawal of British troops from Iraq. The greatest challenge of his premiership was the financial crisis of 2007-2008, an event which the world is still feeling the effects of today and very much so still kind of trying to recover from. Conclusively, from the 9 Prime Ministers we have looked at over these last 2 videos, we can see Prime Ministers from Scotland or of Scottish descent have overseen some of the major events across relatively recent British history. The middle of the 18th century is still relatively recent if you're looking at history as a bigger picture. If there's other Prime Ministers you believed I should have maybe included on this list, or key events that I should have put in for the Prime Ministers I have included, please let me know in the comments below. I got the list off the internet, which I will leave a link to in the description amongst the other sources I have used. So the last thing for me to say is thank you for watching, and I hope you've enjoyed. Please do remember to check us out on Twitter, which I'll also leave in the description. Leave a like and subscribe to the channel if you want to see more kind of history or gaming, things like that. And yeah, I will see you for another video next week.